able to read people like a book gave Ayanokoji unbreakable confidence. Think about it. How could you possibly not be filled with a godlike sense of certainty when you know things about the people around you that they themselves are not even aware of? What I want you to get from this video is control. Control over your interactions, control over your environment, and ultimately, control over your own future. This is why, in this guide, you will learn about how to read body language in 3 stages: the foundational stage, the intermediate stage, and the mastery stage. Each of these levels builds upon the other. So let's sit up straight, take a deep breath, and lock in. Let's first get some popular body language myths out of the way. When you see someone sitting with their arms crossed, do you assume that they are doing a blocking behavior? That's actually not necessarily true. In essence, crossing your arms is like a self-hug, so more than anything, it's a self-soothing behavior. Also, before we go into more advanced techniques, it is important to understand that there is no Pinocchio effect. In other words, there is no single behavior that can reveal things like deception. When you want to understand people, you always need to assess a broader range of factors. Now let's talk about the meaning of key gestures and postures. While talking about hands, it is important to keep in mind that when someone is relaxed, their hands naturally assume a more curved position rather than being completely straight. This relaxed curvature indicates comfort and ease in the situation. Also, relaxed hands are more likely to move freely without tension or stiffness. So if you notice that someone's hands are slightly curved and moving freely, it's a sign that they are feeling comfortable. Additionally, when someone shows you open palms during a conversation, they are more likely to be honest. This is because exposing the palms is a vulnerable gesture that suggests the absence of deceptive intentions. Lastly, handshakes are a goldmine if you want to gather more information about someone, and I am not just talking about the firmness. For example, the position of the palm during a handshake can convey subtle nonverbal messages. A vertical palm orientation, with the palm facing sideways or slightly downward, is most likely neutral and respectful. It indicates openness and a willingness to engage. Conversely, a palm down position could signal dominance or assertiveness, while a palm up position often denotes submission. Other than that, a technique that politicians often utilize to display dominance is offering a two-handed handshake, where the free hand covers or clasps the shaking hand. If you look up Donald Trump handshakes, you can see this in action. Feet can offer such valuable insights because when people try to control their body language, they focus mainly on their facial expressions and hand and arm gestures. So body language below the waist is often where the truth can be found. Here's a practical example. You notice 2 classmates engaged in conversation in the hallway. You're interested in joining them, but are unsure whether your presence would be welcomed or seen as an interruption. Want to find out? Pay attention to their feet. As you approach, their reaction will show whether they are open to including you or prefer to keep the conversation private. If their feet remain stationary while they turn their upper bodies toward you, it suggests they may not be interested in your company. However, if their feet adjust to include you in their stance, it's a good sign that they genuinely want you to join the conversation. I will now show you a short clip. Try to deduce how the interviewed woman feels about the question she gets asked.
Why did you want to own a town?
I'm glad you asked me this question.
I'll bet you are. There was so much written about it.
I'm so glad.
Did you see the foot kicks? These kicks happen when people hear something negative, or they don't want to answer a question, but are forced to. Her doing this behavior signals high discomfort and shows a subconscious effort to kick away something she doesn't like. To use this practically, observe what question triggers the foot kick in the other person. If you want to keep a good relationship, ease off on the questioning or offer emotional support. Vocal cues can also be a big source of information, especially intonations are important here. Intonation is simply the rising and falling of the voice during speech. In general, a rising intonation indicates that someone is submissive or insecure, while a falling intonation displays authority. However, keep in mind that a rising intonation could also just show curiosity. Besides that, the rate of speech is quite an obvious window into someone's mental state. People generally tend to increase their speaking rate when they are nervous. You have probably noticed this too. When you speak in front of an audience, adrenaline rushes through your body, which warps your experience of time. This causes a lot of people to speed up during presentations. It's finally time for us to talk about facial analyses. Let's first approach this by considering the dichotomy of comfort and discomfort, as these are fundamental states that the brain reacts to in the world. In facial expressions, comfort is typified by the absence of tension. The muscles are relaxed and features appear soft and open. Genuine smiles, known as Duchenne smiles, are also a good indicator of comfort. You can spot these smiles by looking out for the engagement of the muscles around the eyes. Conversely, facial expressions associated with discomfort often involve the activation of facial muscles in response to stressors. The furrowing of the brow or squinting of the eyes are typical examples. Tension in the jaw or clenching of the teeth may also be observed. Beyond these overt expressions, microexpressions are a great gateway to someone's mental state. A microexpression is a very brief, involuntary facial expression humans make when experiencing an emotion. They usually last 1/25th to 1/15th of a second and cannot be faked. What makes microexpressions so special is that they are believed to be universal across cultures. Take a minute to make yourself familiar with the 7 universal microexpressions on screen. How can you actually start to decode these micro-expressions in real time, besides just carefully paying attention? One interesting way to train this skill is to practice online with micro-expression tests. There are a lot of free options you can try out. Before we talk about congruence and incongruence, let's take a closer look at the eyes. If someone's pupils widen, it could suggest that they agree with what you just said. But why is that? Pupil dilation allows more light to enter the eyes, which enhances their ability to focus on and process visual information. This subconscious physiological response happens when we are genuinely interested or approve of something. Under certain circumstances, this dilation might be hard to spot, but this is still something useful to keep in mind and could really help you in some circumstances. You may also notice that someone's eyes blink more than usual. This is a big sign that they are struggling to keep calm. However, before you can make a proper judgment, you first have to get a rough idea of their baseline blinking rate. Congruence refers to a state where different aspects of nonverbal communication align harmoniously. On the other hand, incongruence occurs when there is a discrepancy between verbal and nonverbal cues. Incongruent body language, various channels of communication, such as facial expressions, gestures, posture, and vocal tone, convey consistent messages that support the person's verbal statements. For example, someone might show you a genuine smile while also having a relaxed body posture and using open gestures. Conversely, an example of incongruence could be that someone verbally expresses agreement to you while displaying tense facial muscles or avoiding eye contact. Being able to spot these inconsistencies is what really allows you to make more robust assumptions about someone else's thoughts and opens the way for you to enter the mastery stage. Being able to accurately detect the power dynamics of a group is what really sets people like Ayanokoji apart. To master this skill, pay attention to the direction of individuals' feet when they're engaged in conversation within the group. Interestingly, the feet are often pointed towards the center of the group or towards the person they subconsciously perceive as the leader. Also, be aware of everyone's position when walking as a group. The person who naturally assumes the position at the center of the group while walking often holds a position of influence. At some point in your life, you will probably come across someone who consciously tries to trick you into believing something based on their body language. Noticing these attempts comes down to 2 things: gut feeling and timing. When talking about timing, it is important to keep in mind that for the honest person, a hand gesture comes a beat before the words. On the other hand, an anxious liar's gestures will follow the words. In doubt, it is always best to follow your gut feeling. Your subconscious mind often picks up on subtle cues that your conscious mind may overlook.